there's absolutely stuff out there. I promise. There's all sorts of weird shit that no one ever imagined about all kinds of stuff that
Okay.
exists.
What are you what are you talking about there? That
Uh,
was a very interesting statement.
What's up, everyone? Today I've got on the podcast an old adversary of sort, Mr. Benny Glaser. We probably battled online quite a bit actually, and we battled in the PPC that I happened to use Magic and win, so it wasn't really fair. But he's won quite a few things in general, and since he's won some online tournaments, and he's won 5 bracelets. I didn't know that. I didn't realize I was taking down a bit of a champion the entire time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's won like 12 tournaments or so. He's a bit of a mixed master, and he's also got some other talents too. It turns out. Um, what's up, Benny? Welcome to the show.
What's up, Dan? Thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
Yeah. So how many tournaments exactly have you won that are like title tournaments? I believe it's 12. Or am I missing some?
In live or online? I
Both.
mean, I have 25 championship online poker titles.
Oh, I don't know why I only read like 7, but I don't know. Maybe
I won
there's.
7 in one series. I won just this
Oh, oh,
WCOOP. I won 7 in that series. Yeah.
oh, oh! Holy shit! Yeah, that's quite a lot. That's hard to do. I haven't won that many W cubes. I don't know if I won. No, I've won one or two or something.
Yeah.
And
So I have.
what game? Huh?
Well, I was just gonna say I have 25 in total for that. Yeah. You,
Oh, okay. So you're just playing all games. It sounds like.
yeah, I
Do you?
won like the 7, for example, in 5 different games, six different games this series. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, which game would you say? Did you ever have like a specific game that you really focused on, or did you just learn all of them at once? How did this work?
I mean, like way back in the day when I was very young, like it was primarily no limit, a little bit of limit hold'em, and then when I was about 2021, started moving into like PLO8, and then kind of started from there, basically learning all of them at once, like steadily, um, playing like 8 game and things like that, and during the kind of 8 game grind, then yeah, I devoted some time to each game individually, just trying to become a better all round player. So there were like times where I was focusing a bit more on 1 or 2 games in particular. I grinded things like limit hold'em a lot, like heads up limit hold'em sit and goes a lot back in the day. So that and '08 probably I put in the most hands in like online.
Okay. Um, so how did you actually manage to learn all the different games? What did that process look like? Do you have to be very special to learn them all?
Yes. I've also been considering asking you similar questions actually. So maybe you could answer after I do too. Um, I learned both through things like just experience volume, putting in as much as I can. Things like talking hands with friends, I found very valuable. Um, Obviously, also things like running equities online in whatever calculators I could find like 10 plus years ago. Um, those kind of things I was trying to do, so, like even like posting hands on forums, like 2 plus 2 back in the day, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I used to go on quite a lot. Um, as well as things like watching like final table replays, getting interested in those things. I used to always rail like the higher stakes online like 10 to 15 years ago and kind of be analyzing all of the best players, what they were doing, and trying to implement things into my game and like analyzing like that. Yeah.
It sounded like you took a bit of a different route than I did.
Hmm.
But it sounds like it works. I do think posting in forums is underrated a bit because probably some of the answers you can get, you can figure out which ones are actually good, which ones aren't. I did not post in forums, but I did talk with multiple different people about various different games. I did not rail. I didn't rail like the TV series things. Oh, but I did do things such as look at specific things that high stakes players did in specific games, such as Limit 08, because I tried to get someone to teach me for Limit 08, but I couldn't. It just didn't happen, or they wanted like some absurd price, and it's like, no, I don't want to pay $50K or whatever price that they wanted. I forget what they wanted. It was something stupid. That for Limit 08 specifically, I ran some equities. I looked at what other people did, which was there were a few surprises in there. Limit 08's pre-flop game works a bit differently from all their games. To me study it's a little bit similar, and I mean at some point got a bit more adept with the software with that one, but every different game for me had a bit of a different route. Like I started with no limit, and no limit's like totally solved, and it's like beaten to death. But there, limit deuce to 7. I specialized in 3 games to be precise, so I was already basically pretty good at those 3 games. But after that, I put in individual effort into
games. I guess PLO's the third game.
PLO, deuce to 7. And no limit. I can tell you that there are various evolutions to my progress in these games, and a lot of the times I worked with people that did not really get things right. So I ended up losing quite a bit of money because of all that. Sometimes with deuce to 7, for example, that's part of the process is you have to get things wrong a bit. But basically, one of the teams I was with deuce to 7 basically got a bunch of things wrong, even though we used all these calculations. Wow. And then eventually, I stumbled my way.
That's very interesting to me. Yeah. But...
Did you not have these sorts of evolutions where you're just wrong, and you were helped by someone, and you realize later this person was wrong, what they said, we've got to change it. That happened to me multiple times. It happened also in Stud. It happened to me. Not in Limit Hold'em. In Limit Hold'em, I found the guy who was really good, just pretty fast, and there were sims for that. So Limit Hold'em was easy.
Can I ask who that was?
It was one of the best. It was someone who was just had some kind of software before anyone else, basically, even for Ring.
I think I have one or two guesses, but yeah.
Yeah, and they coach kind of actively. I'm trying to think where else. Actually, the people that helped me were wrong, and specifically Stud, deuce to 7. It happened a little bit in PLO as well. PLO, the first people that helped me were not really right. Eventually, I had to change the way that I thought. It also happened. I don't think it really happened in other games, but a little bit Study. I would say that people were a little bit stupid. But basically the Stud game specifically, live players did some smart things and some dumb things, in my opinion. I would say I got really lucky with a couple of the other games, though, and that I learned straight away some smart things that most people were not doing, and it just went to pure crush mode for one of the games, especially, which is my secret weapon of sorts.
Oh, I'm so interested in that. Pure.
You can probably guess which one it is. It's one of the other ones that we didn't mention. So.
No limit single draw?
No.
No.
No. But that one's a little bit weird. I'll just let it exist. I should mention that in short deck, I did also get things wrong originally.
Okay.
It's
I've heard
not short
something.
deck, but I'm also
Right.
I'm better at short deck than I am at no limit. Um, but yeah, short deck I eventually figured out for myself. No one really taught me in short deck,
Hmm.
but there's lots of
And yeah,
things for that. Hmm?
yeah, I'd heard that you'd had like some solver for short deck, basically. Yes, there were definitely times throughout like my evolution where I was told things, or like I thought like X conventional wisdom that I kind of found out that was reasonable, but not like the best possible answer, or like X things didn't matter enough compared to outweighing pros in another area of looking at the game. So yeah, just like slight shifts in viewpoints like that.
Can you give a couple examples? There were only slight shifts.
Uh, yes. So, just thinking of like how secretive, how too deep to go into the secrets. Um, so, for example, uh, shifts of like not having a four bet range in limit hold'em, let's say. Where
Okay. I will give one secret of sorts for that one. In
yeah,
that, one thing you want to do in those limit games is you want to squeeze people a lot
sure.
pre-flop, which a lot of people still make the mistake of currently. And I mean, that's not that hard to figure out, but a lot of live players don't do that. Another one I'll give a secret of, which I don't think my adversaries will watch anyway, that's kind of obvious in my opinion, is that equities converge in a lot of these games, if you know what I mean. So
Hmm.
I see people overcalling a lot in these spots where you can't overcall, and you just get like out of this planet, like Raz, for example. And it's just like, no limit, you get like really hard, really fast, and Raz, it's just like pure punt. And I see people do these like, kinds of things over and over.
Do you
But
do you mean just
huh?
like do you mean just like on third calling one bet, two bets cold, or
Yeah, something like that. I see people figure it out later on in the game, but not so much on third. I see certain people making these like third calls where clearly they're not thinking about things. Um, I'm trying to think of like a big shift for myself. I will say like when I began short deck, I was doing these stupid things because I thought there was enough equity, like overcalling ace seven offsuit and like stupid stuff like that, or like 10-9
okay,
offsuit, where it's
yeah.
a bit of the same principle going on.
Hmm.
You can't really do that, or like limp calling. You can limp call wider than you can overcall in a lot of spots, basically, unless you're like on the
Yes.
button and people just don't play that well or something along those lines.
Right. I mean, so like you're talking like multi-way more specifically and realizing equity. So like like
Yeah.
in Raz, for example, you say like if you call uh third as third person in or something, then you're just gonna get squeezed on fourth and fifth too often that you can't
Well,
realize.
it's not even that. It's just that your equity blows. Like, let's put it like this. So you can call a shitty hand versus a
Right.
steal or whatever,
Yeah.
sure. But you can't call a shitty hand versus two good hands because
Mm.
now your equity doesn't go up; it goes down. It's like you go from. I never actually did the calculation, but I guess two hands now you have to beat two good hands. But I see people do this all the time with like things that have got no shot at all, like some 10 or whatever,
Hmm.
and there's just no way to win. I mean, there's similar things that happen in Stud 8 or whatever, but the game is far more forgiving than um, Raz specifically, and 08 works differently as well.
Yeah. I'd
So
say
that's some
08 is
fun.
probably the most forgiving like that, but yeah,
What's
Stud 8's a
that?
bit less. Yeah, I'd say 08's more forgiving in that way. I think Stud 8 less so, but like I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um,
that's a couple things. With Deuces 7, a big thing was just pre-flop was off in the beginning. Pre-flop's a
mm,
big part of a lot of these games, including No Limit for all my audience.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard like you played against Deuce 7 bots as well. Be able to just say a bit about that?
Played against Deuce to 7 bots.
Yes.
Um, not 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 to my knowledge. I don't think I really battled any Deuce to Seven bots actually. If I did, they weren't very good. I can tell you that.
Oh, really? Oh, but
Yeah.
I heard that you had something built for you that you were able to play against, like a machine.
Oh, no, that's real random stuff. I don't know where you heard that.
Oh no? Okay. Yeah,
And yeah, so
I've
let's
heard that
talk
from
more. Well,
people.
people say lots of things. Let's talk more about you and your endeavors and your 25 bracelets. Yeah,
I'm very
so
interested in that stuff, but I understand if you personally wouldn't want to divulge so much. But yeah.
yeah, so let's talk more about Benny Glaser and what he's doing that's just crushing out of this planet. Uh, so like, are there some things that are important to winning these tournaments in mixed games online that maybe people don't understand, especially around ICM? Do you want to divulge anything along those lines?
Uh, I can divulge a bit. Yeah, I'd say like certain things that I put quite a lot of thought into, specifically like short stack tournament play, that I think I have found like some edges to be gained in certain ways. For example, like creating fold equity, I think is a big thing that I've thought of quite a lot in tournaments in every game. Um, Although that's like more about just like survival and potentially laddering, as not as much as just like winning tournaments. Um, Winning, there's things like uh, experience, like knowing some of your oppositions. Obviously, the fields are a bit smaller in some of the mixed games, so you kind of know the player pool a bit more, as well as just smaller fields are easy to win. Um, and yeah, I think decent experience and uh, finding one or two like creative lines and maybe some adjustments or exploits to make.
Okay. Okay, it sounds like you know the players really well and you know how to adjust to them in mixed tournaments, essentially, just because you have a good read on them. It sounds like a big thing.
Often can be, yeah, um, online at least, and yeah, somewhat live too. But obviously, it's a more diverse player pool live. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to give an example of how ICM might apply in a way that is unexpected for the audience, for beginner players in these kinds of fields?
A way that's unexpected. I don't necessarily know.
Well,
As-
it doesn't have to be. It can just be like some basic that many people might get wrong. For example, I mean, I can think of one myself. Like, I'm not really good at PLO ICM, but one thing that would be really important is that uh, specifically, I don't know how much of a secret this is, but like later on when the final table is going on and the page jumps are very small, it's important to not too much with the to not mess too much with the short stacks because they can really get it in very light, and you have to be a bit more conservative when you have like short stacks on the table, for example, especially if you're middling stack yourself. But it
Mhm.
varies depending on other stacks because like medium stacks can be really in an awkward position for a while because they want to like jump up and have quite a bit of equity in the field.
Yeah, so when it does get down to like the super shallow depth, then yeah, agreed. Just trying to think of one or two examples. I think honestly, most of them are kind of intuitive, but maybe you might want to think a little bit more in depth about, or just like different perspective. Um, I was just analyzing with my friend a particular like Deuce to Seven final table that I played. Um, the one I won for WCOOP, and it's somewhat interesting in having to be a bit more selective with pre-flop, as you also alluded to. That like obviously you just have to be tighter in some scenarios. It's a game where it's kind of a bloodier game where hands rarely end like after one draw, right? And it rarely ends just on the flop for a small bet. You're often going to be kind of priced in to be calling at least one bet to try and see future streets. So especially if you're a shorter stack, then you have to be more selective in your opening hands that you're essentially like might have to just get to the river where you're just getting odds, but it's going to be costing a lot of your stack. And in the same way as like defending blinds, even though like it's a normal chippy V defend or something, you're still going to have to be calling future bets. So like realization as far as how important it is to your stack is pretty valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For the audience, Deuce to Seven is a game where there's low edges, high variance. It's not quite as high variance as Pot Limit Omaha, but it's very low edges, and the equities run close. And basically, you don't want to be put in those spots where you have a bunch of, not so great hands, where you're forced to bubble or you're getting close to bubble with stuff with close equity. So it's a game where you'd end up playing like a lot nittier than you might expect because of the way ICM works. If you're close to bubbling or like facing various pay jumps and that kind of thing, or facing losing lots of your stack where it has lots of leverage or lots of equity, in later stage tournaments. So that's like one thing to consider. So it can really change the way that your game can play. And I do think that, I think I mess up ICM a lot in tournaments, and I think that a lot of people probably are playing like total garbage in these mixed tournaments because you're smiling like you know something. Like
No, I just smiled because you said total garbage. Like I feel like that's a bit extreme, but it was just funny to me.
well, just knowing the way that people make ICM mistakes in No Limit, it just seems impossible that people are going to all of a sudden magically figure out, oh, here's how to play ICM and all these weird games that no one knows what's going on with anyway, that there's not really any like clear software out there for. Like, who knows what kind of secret software there is for some of this stuff. Yeah, that's just what I'm thinking. And there's been a number of things that people have just never gotten right over the years. Like the way that turns play in Limit Deuce to 7 is a little bit tricky in some spots.
Yeah.
People don't seem to understand the way equities work in those. The equities are a lot closer than what people think they are. It's a turns in Deuce to 7, you already drawed 2 times, and now you go one more draw. Just people think like, oh, like 1 card versus 2, it's it's a simple spot. Nope, it's not. And it can really vary a lot depending on the strength of ranges. And if you go from 2 to 1, from just like starting from 1 draw is different, because now if you go from 2 to 1, it's much stronger than, or not much stronger, it's quite a bit stronger than if you just start from 1. Like things like that matter more.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did think of something I could tell you regarding the software thing with Short Deck. Okay. I was proud of this. I was the first person to have a solver in Short Deck, but story around the I bought the license so that no one else could buy it. I felt so smart. And and then I like luckboxed it super hard and got like the stone nuts for it. And then what happened was the backstory of that was I got really hard in the beginning. So I just like flew to Manila one day, and we're normally playing No Limit Hold'em, and then all of a sudden they say, "Oh God, hey, what jungle? We're playing Short Deck today. We're going to play high stakes Short Deck," and I'm like, "What? What do you mean? I just flew here to play." And everyone's already started to play this game at enormous stakes, and it's a very soft game, but no one knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. And normally people would put me in this game, but I was garbage myself, so I could not play. And I had to sit out of these games with these like massive VIPs because like just no one gave me the warning about this, and I just So
when exactly was this?
This was in I think this is when in 2018, 2017.
Oh wow. Okay. Well.
It's one of those years, early on in one of those years. I remember the day because I swore vengeance by, by studying and getting the Sims and all that stuff. I've been sucking for a while, but then eventually winning. Another fun fact was I made $1 million in 1 week grinding the shit out of um, online secret app games in short deck. I was proud of that too. But that was my life. I was just like locked in a hotel room playing. Um, yeah, but I don't have 25. Yeah, I don't have anywhere near 25. I think I have like 3 max or something online tournaments. I want some. And it sounds. I
trade them in for $1 million, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you could do it. Just find short deck or find some soft, whatever short deck. There was quite a lot of money in that for a while. I made a solver for short deck PLO, but I never used it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You made it yourself, or you?
No, I didn't. But it was useless. No one would play the game. I got too aggressive in that one.
Yeah, equities must be insane in that.
Yeah, but probably the way things end up working is that there's still ways to them up. And I mean, equities are pretty crazy in short deck, but there's all kinds of mistakes people can make because of the way that equities converge and because of the way that pre-flop just works, basically.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if people make the same mistakes or similar mistakes in short deck PLO. A comparison would be PLO and 5-card PLO.
Mm-hmm.
Do you play much 5-card PLO, 6-card PLO, any of that stuff?
Not very much. A bit of 5. I've looked into a few things, but very rarely, honestly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the idea of equities converging applies more so in 5-card and 6-card PLO, I would think. Just because people usually overestimate hands at PLO. And I just don't see why that pattern would continue and that be a big source of leaks. But I don't know a whole lot about either of those games, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there's lots of money in them.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I definitely could have devoted more time to that if I wanted to. Yeah, so I know what you mean, but trying enough as it is on the games I currently play to be messing around with those. Yeah.
So, do you have any goals for poker as you play now? Do you have any? Is there any specific ambitions that you have?
Nothing's like super strong. There are a few things that like I would love to accomplish if they kind of happen as a byproduct, as it were. Like I'm still trying to get WCOOP or SCOOP Player of the Series. Something like an EPT main event title would be awesome. That would be a goal of mine. But there's nothing specific, like there's no like X amount of titles or bracelets. I still like enjoy kind of extending my lead as having most titles. I'll continue trying to do that. Same with like UK, like most bracelets, for example. That's fun to me. People are saying I could chase like Hellmuth's titles for bracelets, which is like it's fun, but it's like it's not really a specific thing that I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to devote my energy to. You know, I'm still gonna kind of keep trying to play my best, and if that happens, then that's cool. Yeah.
You could call him out and talk some shit. Like maybe that could be fun to watch.
Me and Hellmuth have talked a lot over the years.
I've gotten some brawls with him.
not brawls, but like obviously he talks a lot of shit, and he has to me a lot over the years, and I do generally enjoy talking back to him, and I often just like kind of dismiss him with just logic why he's being like irrational about certain things, and he ends up mostly just kind of admitting I'm right or something. So it's like fun to kind of mess with him in certain ways, or sometimes I'll just kind of sort of play along, and like I'll feel that like if he's just like being wrong about something, I'm like, okay, maybe I don't want to educate's a condescending word, but like I don't want to like teach about like my strategy or whatever it is, like something, or like something he's saying is wrong. So I just kind of let him be in his own world. But it's fun, like just talking back to him. I've never been like super argumentative with him because I know him and how he is really. So often I just kind of let him do his thing, and I'm not like personally offended by it, because like often like at other times he's just very complimentary about me, uh like both as
Oh,
a
that's
person in my
nice.
game, which yeah, he's like that a lot, so I know when he's complimentary about me those other times, then the times when he is heated or insulting me, I'm not like personally offended by it. So I don't get like truly argumentative unless he's being like very out of line.
So deep down, he's a Benny Glaser fan. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, and it's not even deep down. Honestly,
Oh.
he's been very complimentary about me this year.
Uh,
Like just yeah,
Oh, and on the surface. Okay, sweet.
yeah. He's like randomly been posting like congratulatory tweets about me and certain things which like I had were unexpected to me. He's just like posting like, oh, that's cool. Okay, thanks, Phil. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
Uh,
cute. You know you're what's the word? A contender in his eyes if you get the congratulatory message on the internet from Phil Hellmuth. I've gotten one or two. Feels
mm,
good.
yeah,
Yeah. So
those are so nice.
let's talk about some of the other stuff you do. Apparently, you're not just a mixed game player, but you do some other things too. I didn't know that you do. You're very much into music.
Mm.
And do some martial arts as well. And apparently, you're also into positive impact, which is what the podcast is meant to be about, largely.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you talk about these other interests of yours? Do they take a large place in
Sure.
your life?
Uh, Somewhat, honestly, not as large of a place as I would like. I still mostly dedicate a lot of my time and energy to poker, so a lot of things kind of go on the back burner.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I did used to do some martial arts. I barely have in a long time, really. I would like to spend more time on those, but things like it's difficult when I'm just traveling so much. And unfortunately, same with music. I'm traveling so much, it's really hard to like just take my electric guitar and amp to, on a plane or wherever it is, like for a couple of weeks all the time. So it just unfortunately means I'm without it for a long time. And even if I do have it, then it's kind of hard. Like I'm still spending a lot of my time and energy playing that, like, after a day of grinding, I'm kind of too exhausted a lot of the time. So I would like to be able to dedicate more time to music for sure. And yeah, guitar playing is still it's basically my biggest passion. And I think next year I'm planning to try and carve a little bit more time out for it, maybe traveling a little bit less with poker. I've been going really hard the last year with traveling. Um, so that in particular, I would like to be able to have more time for. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that music was particularly challenging to spend a lot of time on. I figured, okay, I'd do it eventually myself. Um,
Hmm.
Music and martial arts. I was doing some martial arts too, but I found it very difficult to like find schools to many of the places that I was traveling to because I wasn't quite good enough to practice on my own, and
Yeah.
there weren't exactly martial arts tournaments. Like I don't know how you'd like spar if you travel. Like that would be something. I mean, if you found out a way to do that, that would be. I mean, you have to be quite good to spar safely, also. So there's like a few different hurdles to get over,
Yeah.
for that one. But I would think it's kind of strategic in the same sense that poker is. I don't know how serious you were about it. Um,
Uh, Martial arts, not serious in a while. It was back when I was younger when I was taking it a bit more
oh, okay,
seriously.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I would think. So I've heard talks of a poker band possibly happening in the future. I
Tell me
wonder
more.
if, well, I believe Jason Kuhn was interested. I mean, he's got his time problems also,
Yeah.
and I've heard of a few others. I was interested as well. I have some musical talent, as it turns out. Um,
As it turns out. Yeah.
yeah, I can play the
Okay.
piano.
Okay.
But the problem with pianos is you can't take them everywhere, and you can't find them everywhere either. That's part of the thing. I had this
Yeah.
crazy idea to learn the flute, but I put it on the back burner.
Mm.
But yeah, if there's a poker band forming, would you be interested in a guitarist role?
Sure. Yeah. I'd be interested. Yeah.
There was another,
It's
huh?
well, I
Okay,
was gonna say it's hard because like a band basically requires people to be in the same physical place most of the time, uh, which is like unfortunately why I've not really been able to be in a band for a while, just because of traveling so much. Like I basically, for practice, it's hard to do online. You can, but very sporadically. It's just better to be practicing in person. So if it was just like a fun project for like part time, then sure, I'd be interested. But like as far as something to take more seriously, it's hard without people being in the same like location for a while.
sure, that makes a lot of sense. All right, well, I may make this happen in the future when I have more bandwidth. I try, but I'm also overextended out of my mind. So, running a podcast and playing poker and blah
Yeah.
blah blah. Uh, but yeah, do you find any of these kinds of things help you with your poker game? Do they help? Is there maybe just doing any of them on your downtime benefit you in some kind of way, or they're just things that you like to do?
I don't know that they necessarily help my poker game specifically, but I think they just help my mental well-being often.
Sure.
That can then potentially like translate into how well I'm playing poker in some ways, or just like how well I'm, coping with swings and rough days.
I was kind of thinking
So
of that, to be honest. I was
yeah,
thinking more like the mental game aspect, just because I can tell you that listening to certain kinds of music actually did motivate me quite a lot, especially as I was on downswings. But it would
hmm,
be kind of this defiant kind of music. It would be have a bit of an attitude, frankly.
okay. So what are you talking about? Like hard rock type music?
Actually, metal would be one example, or
Hmm.
Tool. It
Oh,
doesn't really
nice. Yep.
doesn't qualify quite as metal. Like things along these lines. I'm trying to think what else. Um, there's like
Cool. Like
some
again, yeah.
like
Angry attitude. I get yeah.
um, some some that's more like theme music or like film music actually.
Okay.
I don't know, like
Interesting.
something like Hans Zimmer, for example.
Okay. I would
Yes.
have
Huh?
expected like that to have an attitude. I thought that's more like more calming, really.
It's more inspiring, is the word.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. It doesn't have to be angry. More like defiant is the adjective that I would use.
Huh.
Because angry isn't always angry. Angry has like more like edge to defiant. It can be kind of rough, if you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. That's my musical analysis. But usually, the music would have something more of like an inspiring undertone.
Okay. Interesting. I guess I associate like inspiring and defiant as almost like different things. So I'm curious how Defiance inspires you, I guess.
Well, in poker, I think it's kind of simple, straightforward. Like in poker, there's a lot of times where things just don't go your way, and the only way to change those is to be eventually defiant of the way reality really is, right? Until it changes. And so you kind of have to have some kind of like resistance or like will or whatever you want to call it to move those kinds of things. I mean, it's the same thing in real life as well. Does that make sense?
Honestly, no, I think I would have expected you to say like to be able to be more accepting of things, like um, that things that aren't going your way that you might not be able to control. So being like angry at something that you can't control, trying to just defy variance that you have no control over. That resistance to that, I think, causes more internal problems. And I've actually had that in the past where I'm like not being able to accept like some thing that's not in my control and wishing it was different, and that just causing more like anger or like in a turmoil like that.
You might be onto something. Actually, I will say that if I failed a lot while I was doing something, the kind of music that I would listen to would be more along the lines of what you're talking about, of something more about acceptance, where
Mm.
maybe that's like a better way of dealing with things now that I'm thinking about it. Uh, because like, I mean, you're constantly like battling the way things are. That is kind of, I could see how that would be exhausting.
It's exhausting. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you haven't like thought about this before, frankly. Yeah.
I think I have thought about it before, but maybe more recently, as more along the lines of Defiant. Like I actually before we were having this podcast, I was going through some shit that was like really messing with my head, um, and
Mm.
the general theme, it found it to be what's the word, placating, something like I don't know. It felt good to listen to music that tended to be along the lines of. I mean, there's an element of acceptance in there too, an element of like this is the way things are in there. Um, but
Mm.
yeah, maybe you're onto something. I had this crazy idea, like maybe I should like listen to more. I do like spiritual music too, so I thought, okay, maybe I'll listen to more like softer stuff and like take out a bit of the extra edge to things. So maybe you're influencing me. So what kind of music
Well,
do you play?
let me know how that goes. I'll be interested if you try. Uh, Personally, like for guitar, like it's somewhat different to what I listen to sometimes. So like when I'm playing, um, I enjoy like challenging and advanced things. Like I play to a pretty high level, so I
Oh,
like
really?
seek out. Yeah, I've like played guitar since I was 6,
Oh,
so
shit.
I can play most things, and so I generally like seek out things I find to be challenging or interesting. So a lot of that might be like guitar oriented music, like instrumental stuff. So a lot of kind of rock or metal or progressive things like that, which often are musically interesting or have like more guitar solos, for example, that I can learn and enjoy playing things like that.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
So, oh, maybe you can play some of the stuff. You're familiar. It sounds like you're familiar with a lot of stuff that I'm familiar with. Like I listen to a lot of
Hmm.
underground stuff, and at least when I was younger, I would seek out like advanced, guitar playing to a fair degree, to the point it was like kind of obnoxious, frankly. Many of the audience won't know what the hell we're talking about, I think. But what's some of the stuff that maybe some of them would know that you could play? Like what's like a well-known guitar solo that would impress people that sounds really cool that you can play?
I, I can play most of them, to be honest. I'm trying to think of
Really?
anything like I can play like most, I don't know, well-known things like most Metallica solos. I'm like trying to think of things that would be impressive. I don't know, I can play like all the, let's say, Sweet Child of Mine guitar solos, like these kind of things that like the famous solos for sure that I've definitely learned a lot over the years. I can play most of them or learn most of them pretty quickly. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Well, Metallica people would be familiar with. I was thinking more of like the spin-offs of Dream Theater would be not that hard to, not that crazy to know about, or that kind of shit. There's some of the
Liquid
stuff.
tension experiment. That's pretty.
I was thinking of that one specifically. Yes.
That one's crazy, but that's very hard. So one of the toughest solos that I've played a lot is Innocence Faded by Dream Theater. That's one of my favorites, and one or two others. There's Take the Time by Dream Theater. But yeah, they're very challenging. Yeah, so that's like right around the level where like I have to dedicate more time to mastering those if I want to.
Oh, well, wow. Okay, shit. We need Benny Glaser for this band thing for f***ing sure. I need to step my piano game. Yeah. Well, you got to make this thing happen.
Let me know. Yeah.
It sounds like it won't be hard for you. I don't know how good the other people are. Like one of them was I forgot the other high stakes player's name, but we'll see if this ban happens. I personally want to do some shit, but I just can't justify the time to put in. I can't justify like with all the time I'm spending to put into. Okay, now I'm gonna learn a musical instrument. Like what the fuck? That's too bad.
I have one or two other like poker playing friends as well that we talked about stuff over the years that are like trying to like have a jam, for example. So like it's not out of the realm, but like just to have a jam, something I don't know about having an actual band, but yeah, I'll be interested. And there are one or two friends as well. I don't know if you know, but like I have a friend who plays drums at a decent level. Brandon Jack Harris, also good friend of mine, plays guitars very well, also plays piano. Yeah, things like that.
Oh, how about that? I didn't know he plays this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. Yeah, then maybe there's something there. I wonder if there could be something that could do something interesting with the poker world.
Sure.
Well, what else occupies your time? I did hear that you were interested in positive impact. What areas do you focus? In what ways do you do that, or do you give back? Do something positive, and why? Actually, what's your motivation?
What did you hear about, for example?
I feel like I heard something about you teaching.
Poker.
Am I mistaken?
Well, poker I coach, but it's not in a volunteering way. I mean, I charge, but I do coach, and that is actually something that I do enjoy and find very fulfilling. So that is really something that I enjoy, seeing my students progress, and then like they come back and they're like, I'm feeling better thanks to your coaching, and I've really seen these improvements here and here, and I'm like, really happy that from your coaching I've seen all these improvements, and that's really nice for me to always hear. I really enjoy that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean that's one way to do it for sure. I actually think it did occur to me that teaching poker does essentially cultivate a lot of positive virtues in people, even though people view it as predatory quite a lot. I don't think that that's really true. I mean, no more predatory than like teaching someone to like become successful at something at someone else's expense.
I did, like, for example, just now in Cyprus, where I just came back from, there was PokerStars women's boot camp that they did. So I did do a talk for them, and like they had a Q&A with me, and that was cool to help out. They all like enjoyed that, and then when they had their tournament the next day, then I like be trying to rail and trying to give them advice there, for example. Yeah, and that was fun too.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're actually one of the recent people that have been doing lectures for this, or helping out with these women's boots camps. What did you talk about? Is there any theme?
Well, I had like some ideas going into the talk, but I was basically just prepared to answer all their questions. So their questions was
Oh,
kind of a bit different to what I was expecting. Um, they're they're a bit on the newer side, but there's like different levels of experience to each of them. So I was kind of answering different questions. It was overall a bit more strategy based, honestly. Just things like open sizes or like tournament play, for example. Yeah.
oh, oh, okay. Some fundamental stuff. It sounds like.
Somewhat, yeah. Yeah, so those were a bit newer in particular. There are one or two who are a bit more experienced, but yeah, it's generally like people that for that who had kind of qualified for the tournament. Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there any other ways that you give back or that you actively focus on, or is it all just poker related?
I think it's probably mostly poker related. I mean, like I donate to charities sometimes that like I don't, you know,
Yeah.
broadcast that kind of stuff. Like aside from that, I honestly don't have a ton of like time really these days right now to be devoting more time to that stuff, but I also would like to in the future. I do still find it fulfilling. Yeah.
Yeah. I found the journey into positive impact to be not that simple. For me, I always beg the question, well, how do I make the biggest positive impact? Because, like, if you give, I found like, well, you can give someone something, but you can also give them more. And if you give them money, like they can waste it or they can not use it wisely, et cetera, et cetera. It
Mm-hmm.
actually is a lot more complicated than people think. It was like a whole research thing in and of itself. I will say, yeah, it does take some time. Also figuring out which charity to donate to, if they use the money in a smart way.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, I'll say that the conclusion also that I came to also came to the conclusion I came to also required a lot of time, which is making something equivalent to businesses that do something positive, such as this or whatever you want to call this. This is like a thing that is creates a reoccurring.
Okay. Yeah.
It's meant to create a reoccurring positive impact. So yeah, Doug can take really a lot of time and creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity. Music, I think, actually is one of those things. By the way,
Hmm.
that's what you're really into. So it'd be really interesting to see some Benny Glaser solos.
Yeah, I mean, I do put them out like on social media every so often.
Oh, really?
Um, mm, yeah, on like Instagram, for example, I've been putting. So that's something like this year I've been trying to do a bit more. Um, haven't really in the past because part of me finds it a little bit weird if it's just like it feels a little bit just showing off kind of things like here's this cool solo I played sort of thing. But
Isn't that what Instagram's for? Wait, isn't that? Wait, what? Am I missing something?
somewhat, yeah, at least for some people. I don't know. Part of me still feels a little bit weird, just like a little bit uncomfortable about the kind of like this is the so. But like I know people enjoy it, and people have been encouraging me to do it more and that kind of stuff. It doesn't necessarily like come naturally to me, honestly. But I've been doing it a bit more, and like I've enjoyed the positive feedback, and the positive like encouragement and reinforcement is nice. So yeah, been doing it more, and it feels like it's a bit more just relatable to people when I'm just like showing myself in a just more myself in a more vulnerable way, even. So it feels like it's just a more kind of relatable in a human way to people, which is nice, and yeah, builds connections and things like that.
Yeah, it is something that universally people can appreciate, which is nice. So you don't need like the the actually kind of arbitrary barriers of language quite a bit. There's a lot of like hidden barriers, whereas I feel like
Hmm.
there aren't too many negative ways that music can be misinterpreted. At some point, I'd like to study it to understand it more, just because it's like kind of, I don't know. It's like almost a strange thing that it exists in my mind, but that's another topic. No, do you know what I mean? Because
Sort of. I'm interested in that thought though. I think
well, yeah,
just you think it's a strange thing that humans have thought of this construct?
more like, how do I explain it? My thought is basically, why does this like exist at all? Because it's like a different version of communication where it's a bit more primal in a way that it communicates directly to your emotions. And
Yeah.
it's not like, yeah, I mean, that's basically the thought is like, what the so
Yeah.
why
I
is
think
this
I
a
think
thing?
that's what makes it amazing, frankly. I think that's what makes it so incredible. I mean, a friend of mine once said like the noises we make with our mouths that affect like people so much, like so many people, like all over the world, like so emotionally, and it's just like such a simple, pure thing, um, that you know essentially makes something amazing, and yeah, I love it for that.
Well, it is kind of a magical thing. I don't know a whole lot about it, so I can't talk about it too much more than this. Unfortunately, even though there's like some kind of math to it, um, we'll revisit when the ban happens. Okay, so we'll get the ban going.
There's some kind of math to it.
There's math to
Uh,
music. You didn't know that.
well, it depends what kind of math you're talking about, like frequencies or
Well, it's just the way that the melodies work is there has to be a math to it. It's basically just mathematical patterns.
what? I mean, are you talking about scalic things? Because those are again like constructs of cultures. Like Western scales are different to like certain Asian scales, for example. So if you're talking like intervals in certain frequencies that we've created, then that's a mathematical thing. But that's yeah.
Uh, I mean that to some extent. I mean like the frequency, the speed at which things are played, the what's the time scaling is what I'm referring to, I believe. I mean, I'm not an expert at this point. I'm like kind of speculating, but like I know for a fact that melodies exist because of just like just there's a mathematical pattern between them. That's why they sound well because they somehow like speak to the emotion through whatever mathematical arrangement is between those notes.
Um, Sort of. I think maybe work on those thoughts and
Okay.
refine them, because I think like scales, for example, they're the scales that we know as a Western uh, society are kind of something that we've developed. Like there are other, as I said, like Asian scales are like how they're like microtonal, for example, that have like lots of tiny tones that are different for us to hear. Um, the scales that we know are just like more pleasing to us because largely because of familiarity, actually, just
Really?
because they're in lots of songs. Yeah.
That's strange to me. I can tell you I like lots of what Eastern scales. I don't know about other people. Like
Hmm.
I like them a lot of the time more than uh, Western ones. To be honest, I don't
Hmm.
know. This
I mean,
I
as
didn't
you know,
know.
like
Huh?
the human ear likes to hear things that are familiar and like pleasing things, so they're like patterns and things that they understand and are familiar with. Like the ear like and brain like seeks patterns and be like, oh, I've heard this before, this isn't, that's just more generally pleasing than, for example, more microtonal stuff, which is yeah a bit more challenging for the human ear to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, okay. Well, a couple things. One thing is, I've always wondered why my musical taste is different than other people's. I don't know what's up with that. It's maybe an autism thing. Another thing is, if you have some books or research about this, I'm happy to read at some point. Although it definitely delves into a topic where I just don't. Like, really, it goes pure into Spiceville. I hope it'll be useful in some kind of way. It's like this total pivot from a lot of the stuff that I happen to use my time for. But I read plenty.
Yeah.
I've got time for reading. I read on airplanes and things like that. Um, I've
Yeah,
got
I don't think I have like specific note. I want like you. just have an interesting brain, so I just wanted to get your thoughts in it in general. I don't think there are like specific reading material on this that I know, but I know it like absolutely exists and probably wouldn't be too hard for you to find if you wanted to look into it.
I have enough on my plate already, but eventually I'll find it. There's absolutely stuff out there, I promise. There's all sorts of weird shit that no one ever imagined about all kinds of stuff that
Okay.
exists.
What are you talking about there? That was a very interesting statement.
Well, for example, I mean, I can tell you about some of the other stuff I've been reading about. Like, for example, the effects of geography on history. If you look into history in general, there's all sorts of crazy stories and all sorts of reasons why, like, the things, the way they are the way they are. You can see, for example, various turns in history that have happened, and you can see that actually there's lots of, like, variance in the courses of history. And in fact, a a thing that's been going on lately that is interesting is essentially because of like the baby boomer period, we were on like uh, a big upswing, and we've basically been on like a party period for a long time, like one of the best points in history for a long time, and now like things are starting to catch up where now we have to like get our shit together again. Like history goes through these kinds of periods all the time, and you can see a lot of the reoccurring the events that occur now, like debates over gender and like like the splitting of the classes and all this kind of stuff. This all happened in other kinds of points in history, and it looks like a little bit like America looks a bit like Rome in many ways. In fact, many of the um, like the Romans' tolerance for religions, for at least they tolerated for a while, actually predated American ones. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff, specifically in history, just that people never imagined. All kinds of crazy stories, all kinds of periods in history, all kinds of crazy things people did. Um, there's books about movements I found were interesting. There's lots of patterns in that. What else? There's quite a bit of evidence of magic kinds of things, but it's really hard to prove. There's just many strange occurrences in history. You're laughing?
Okay. Well, it's just a very vague statement that's quite fantastical. Magic, I don't know. Just say the word magic, like I don't know what to make.
Well, I don't know what to think either. I read these stories and I'm like, what the absolute is going on? Um, that's what I read. One I'll give, for example, let's see, what's a good one? I mean, the whole story of like Buddha is kind of crazy. Um, I mean, he didn't even like believe in. He didn't even like. He considered the question of the existence of God, for example, to be not a non-question. But allegedly,
To be
he
a non-question because he was so adamant it was a true statement of his existence.
no, that's not why. It's because it's just like it's more like a label for the way things work. Basically, is my understanding. And it's like kind of it's just in some ways unimportant to think about things like that. I think was the way that he was getting at.
Okay.
Like the analogy he would give would be like if someone fires an arrow, at least for other sorts of situations, it's like it'd be like asking you what kind of color is the arrow and like how many feathers it have, like these kinds of questions. I have to think of precisely what he referred to there, but he was like extremely pragmatic in the way that he did things to keep them like as simple as possible and like straight to the point. He didn't like to engage in like pointless just pointless philosophizing, like that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, what
Okay.
else? There's books about the number of the golden ratio. There, like I found a book about that. There's books about the ways to use words in a more captivating kind of way. There's
I mean, things like that, I would say, like, are just finding out research about info. I guess class magic is a more different thing like that. If but it seems like you've been exploring things that cannot be explained, or you know.
Well, I'm exploring whether they can be explained or whether they're real or not. I read some books that were complete. I don't really think, I don't really believe in them too much, or at least I read them a bit. For example, I read a book. What was it? I read a book about what was it called? This conspiracy theory thing of like the Lemurians that apparently they've taken up shelter. You ever heard about this? The some aliens, no, excuse me, not aliens, but people that lived on a continent. I don't know, like um, however many tens of thousands of years ago. I get kind of confused about the time zones. Apparently, they disappeared completely like 12,000 years ago, and supposedly they took up shop in this place called Mount Shasta. And like apparently, if you meditate in the right way, you can communicate with them. And if you're pure of heart enough, I can't make this up, dude. I can't make this shit up.
Sounds like you could be, but go on.
I'm really skeptical because I'm sitting here reading this book and saying, why can't you just prove that you're real? For sake, like if you're so advanced. Um, but yeah, like apparently you can communicate with them. Maybe there's some kind of reasons. There's just nothing ever.
There was a continent on Earth that existed tens of thousands of years ago that no longer does.
Something like that. It's more like it gradually shifted away. I don't really get it myself, but yeah.
These are not things that I thought I would be talking about in this interview. But
Well, you
interesting.
asked, man. You asked about what sort of weird shit is out there, so I had to oblige. Anyway,
Fair.
we'll bring it back down to Earth and stuff that definitely is real.
Okay.
Do you want to travel all this much? Is that like something that's a goal of yours, or are you just try? Are you just trying to explore everything? You're just going after money? What's going on here?
A bit of both. Obviously, I do think it is generally lucrative. You know, live poker lucrative in general. So there is some money aspect there. A lot of it is kind of like the same stops that I'm going to, for example, for the EPTs. So the traveling side of that I don't find as fun or interesting anymore, just because I'm like seeing all those places I've seen 7 times before, and you know, often I'm not spending extra time in those places to do fun things and being tourist. I'm just like stuck in a casino or poker room most of that time. Uh, so like the traveling itself, not necessarily enjoyable. The social side of it, I do enjoy. Like for the EPT, like I'm seeing all my friends at all the stops, and that's a lot of fun. So that I still enjoy, and is a reason why I do it, just for the social aspect. Um, I enjoy seeing new places, and I'm still trying to do that. I'm actually planning to go next month to Thailand for the first time.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Uh,
that's sweet.
yeah, so I'm mostly excited for that. I've been still also kind of apprehensive because I'm mostly going alone, and I'm planning to do some interesting things there. Actually, like I'm planning to go to a fitness boot camp whilst I'm there,
Oh, really?
for example.
Is it a
Yeah,
martial arts one? Is it just like general fitness, or yoga? What is it?
it's that one is primarily fitness. I
Hmm.
might also be going looking at in another kind of more meditative retreat there, which is a bit different, but yeah. So I think that could be would will be cool. I'm planning to travel around there quite a lot. That's just for holiday basically. Considering after that going to Vietnam also for the first time, where there is also a poker tour happening there, um, which I'm trying to do as like a new experience. Like hopefully it's also going to be profitable. You know, I've heard it's a good event, but yeah, that is something that is interesting for me. Hopefully it will enrich me as a person, allow some growth to, you know, see new cultures and experience like all those kind of things. I'll be there for quite a while. So that's something I'm excited for. Um, yeah, as far as other travels, I don't think I'll travel quite as much as I have been, like this year. In the future, I think it can be fun, but it's often exhausting, really. And basically for the last almost year and a half, I haven't had like a home base
Oh
to be
yeah.
living, which has its like freedom and cool things, but also just makes some things difficult. And uh, I do enjoy like the kind of comfort and security of like having a home base that you can come back to. So I'm thinking next year that's something I'll probably get back to. Yeah.
Yeah, that is one thing that I realized from traveling too much. I specifically picked a home for those exact reasons. It affected a lot of things in my life, and yeah, basically I realized you miss out on a lot of things when you travel a lot, but you still, I mean, it's still pretty good, and you do get to see lots of places. And I'm a little surprised you don't explore outside of the casino too much. It's a very odd
Yeah.
decision.
No, it depends on where it is. I do try to. I mean, one issue is just like I play everything basically, so I'm busy almost every day at like basically all the stops. So I can't really take time off during the festival. I'm basically playing every day, so it's just like I'd add a couple of days after or before the festival. Um, but yeah, so in the cities that I've been to a lot before, like Barcelona or somewhere, then these days I'm not really adding extra. Somewhere a bit more interesting, for example, like Bahamas this year, I did like take a few extra days before then to chill on a beach, and enjoy that kind of stuff. So it depends where it is, and if it's somewhere either new or just somewhere that I enjoy, then yeah, I do still add a couple of extra days to enjoy that.
I would imagine a lot of the audience would really like to be able to travel. I actually should to look into it and see where they're all at, but most people usually don't get the opportunity. For them, I think it would be. I mean, probably in the beginning, it was like a lot of fun and amazing, where you get to travel to all these opportunities. And eventually, yeah, anything. The grass is always greener if you get used to things. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know that there's a bunch of locations opening up for travel. There's for poker. I know that there's Brazil sometime
Mm.
coming up in January or so. I still haven't been to Brazil. There's Uruguay coming up actually from ACR.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, but that's piqued my interest.
I did not. Oh, that's the cage or something, right? Is
Yeah.
that again?
hmm
Okay, what's in Brazil?
I'm not 100% sure. I need to find out more
Hmm.
information. Uh,
I'd be
there's
interested in that. I've never been to Brazil, but I would like to, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to go to Brazil too, for lots of reasons. And I haven't been to South America yet. There's Costa Rica coming up.
Me
Huh?
Ooh.
There's some
Well, I
actually.
said me neither to South America, so I would still like to. And Costa Rica also piqued my interest. Another place I've never been to, but would like to, yeah.
Yeah, Costa Rica is supposed to be positive vibes, and
Yes.
just to be, yeah, lots of people like it.
Pura vida, yeah.
And maybe I'll go exploring there and in South America.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, those are some
Yeah. So,
ideas. Huh?
like, January, I'll add that to my list of possible stops. Brazil in January. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. If I find out more, I can let you know. There's also there's a couple Costa Rica, I think, will be next year also. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's this Australian poker tour that I happen to go out to. I'm in Sydney right now. It was pretty
Mm.
good. I still think it was the right decision, even though games didn't go as much as I thought. There's going to be more stuff in like Perth and these other kind of random places in Australia. It should
Cool.
be exciting. One fun fact is I learned that there's giant spiders here, which I have not seen yet. I don't know if I want to see them, but yeah,
Yeah,
there's like
probably not. Probably do not want to see them. Yeah, but I know that that's definitely a thing in Australia. I do love Australia. I've only been to Melbourne though, which is one of my favorite cities. But I would love to explore it more. Um, yeah, only ever went there for the Aussie Millions. Would love it to somehow return somewhere else in Australia. Yeah, and would plan to go there sometime, possibly next year. Definitely would recommend avoiding spiders from everything I've heard from various people in Australia. Yeah.
Oh, they're not actually dangerous, these big spiders. But they can freak you out if you're like driving and like one like crawls on the windshield. Apparently, like
Yeah.
that happens and people like crash because of this.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's something I didn't know about. There's lots of snakes and stuff, but otherwise, Sydney's amazing. We're running a bit out of time here, but I'd like to know also what having won so many bracelets and all of that. Do you get a bit of recognition? Do you get a bit of recognition from all this? Have you gotten the fame treatment?
Yeah. I guess it depends to like what extent you're talking about. Um, Obviously, like at the World Series, for example, is different to most places. Like, a lot of people know who I am there. Uh, Especially, for example, there, like, a lot of people would have me on their fantasy teams, for example, and be rooting for me, so that's cool. So I enjoy, like, that kind of experience. Um, I've had, EPT success too, so a lot of those stops is fun. Um, but, like, it depends where else in the world. Like, there are some other places in Europe where not many people know me, which is, like, okay by me. um, I think like last year at the end I went to the Netherlands for the first time and not many people knew me and I was like, okay, just chilling. And yeah, so I guess it depends what you mean by the fame treatment, but yeah, I'd still have whatever it is. Someone wants to take a photo with me sometimes, or yeah, but it's fun. I generally enjoy it.
I was thinking, how many bracelets do you have to win to get the Phil Hellmuth treatment or something equivalent? It definitely depends a lot on where you go.
Yes, I'd say it also just like depends on the type of bracelets as well, like what bracelets you win. Like just win, for example, like only the main event, for example, then obviously infinite more people know you. Like whoever like Espen, for example, like immediately way more people knew him than knew me. So it depends on what, just out of publicity for things. And I think, for example, my recent run at the Wynn World Championship also like helped with that a lot, just because of like pure publicity of that I think helped more than like my bracelets, which didn't get much publicity. Not many people knew about. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, of course. I find it varies a lot per place, really a lot. Like sometimes it depends on the arrival and stuff. I don't know. It's not that's all it's cracked up to be, really, from my experience. But whatever. It maybe depends on the person. Well, anyway.
What about you?
Well, there's a few things. I did get the Phil Hellmuth treatment in Georgia. They put my picture like on the side of a building, which is kind of crazy. They got that to happen, and
Right.
I was treated like some kind of poker celebrity. Well, I was. So there was that. They showed me all around Georgia, and I mean, Georgia's pretty cool of a country. You should play poker in Georgia. I got to play a guy for
Yeah.
100K, so that was nice. That was not a pro. It was a legit game. I don't get cheated that much, actually. I'm pretty sure. I don't get cheated. Like I've been cheated like every once in a while, but not that much by like random people I meet in these countries, man. Cross my fingers. As far as I can tell,
That sounds
usually.
cool. Yeah.
Let's see where else. Here went pretty well. I would say I was more famous than I thought I was here. In Vegas, you get a lot of those guys come up to you there. There's loads of places where every once in a while I'll just meet some random fan. Like I met one in like Montenegro. Just really random places. It's kind of cool to make connections with people in random places. To be honest, like India's pretty good too. So that's a unique
And what?
Think about it. Huh?
I was gonna ask, and what do you think about like the people you play against as well? Like, for example, like when we played or something, like you didn't know anything about me really, and then you found out my screen name on like the last day, and then still didn't really know and didn't know anything about my life.
Your name seemed like a good adversary for Macho Man Dan. I will say that. You sounded like a good substitute for Tito Fantana. Benny Glaser.
So, what did you think of that whole final table?
It was like that final table. I think, if I recall correctly, was kind of tough. There were some like surprises there for sure. Like the one guy ran a really animal bluff that worked. I believe. No, it didn't work. Actually, the Japanese dude, that was unbelievable. That's one thing I remember. I remember getting in the nuts against you in a huge pot. That was nice in a 3-bet pot. I recommend that as a good mixed game strategy.
Great strategy. People talk to me about that hand so much.
What was there to talk about? Like, you didn't believe me. You're playing against a guy who has a chain around his neck and is saying ridiculous things. And he has it or he doesn't. Like, what do they even say?
Yeah, I mean, like, people are, like, building a lot of, like, meta about it. Partly because of you, or, like, psychology, or, like, the history of the final table so far. Yeah.
What the fuck? I mean, I did not want to bluffs, I'll tell you that. Like, I don't know what the meta was. See, this is why I do these things. Because now there's a meta game because I'm fucking Macho Man Dan, and and I got the towel out, and maybe there's some tears being shed, and then I got a cape, and I don't know what the meta game is.
Well, I'm enjoying how much it's amusing you, but like for example, there was a hand before that where also don't have a single draw. I 3-bet a pair queen, big blind versus button, and then like showed it down versus you, which you were very displeased about, and you were like, Betty, I'm gonna get you for that. You're gonna pay for that. You're gonna be so unhappy, like that stuff. As if like something I don't know how much is just like your random talk somehow, or like how much is like actual like weighted or planned into your future things.
It was planned to bring the belt to the final table, the first ever WSOP belt, and the cape was planned. I mean, all that was planned. The towel was planned. I looked that one up. It turns out there may or may not have been some advanced metagame going on when I dressed up as Macho Man Dan in that hand and happened to have the nuts against you in a pivotal
Don't want to divulge, but
and if you could have reasoned how to fold and then explain to me later that the metagame was, well, I knew you couldn't be completely insane after you showed up with a chain, a pail with some towels in it, and these ridiculous glasses and a cape to Red Savage. Like, you couldn't be that crazy. You could be crazy enough to bluff here. Like, you had to, like, have some point where you're, like, playing serious. So, I mean, if you folded for that reason, you would have tilted me out of my mind. I will tell you that. I would have had some bluffs there for sure. I can tell you that. Anyway, would you like to, is there anything you'd like to advocate or you'd like to leave the podcast saying, anything else you'd like to say before we wrap things up?
Not especially. There's nothing that I really want to plug. I think we've covered a lot of things that I might have potentially wanted to say. Anything. So, I hope everyone enjoyed the pod or at least found things interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, yes. Thank you for your time, and until next time, maybe you'll get another shot at winning the Poker Players Championship belt.
Sounds good. until we form the band.
Or until we form the band, yes. We have to keep the band in mind. And the music, research of the pattern as well, of course, as well.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, thank you for your time, Benny.